Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pursuit of Relentless podcast. You have your host, Alaina, coming to you from British Columbia on Earth Day. And I am super excited to be here. Tomorrow's my birthday. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to record some podcasts while I'm in BC, go see my family. It's going to be awesome. And today we're going to have a really educational episode of the podcast with Cait Holmes today. She is a mortgage broker and she's just like educating people, doing things the right way. And I've been following her for a while on her social media and I love how much educational content she posts. So I really wanted you guys to get access to her information. So welcome to the show, Cait.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited that you're here. So maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about how you got into doing what you're doing.
Sure. So I've got to rewind quite a ways. My first mortgage I got with a mortgage broker. And so I went in there, we were buying our condo at the time with my ex. We went and saw a mortgage broker and I went in there and I thought, why would anybody ever deal with a bank after this? It just made so much sense to me that, look, I can have all of these lenders wanting my business versus going into a branch and them just having one type of product. So for me, after having that one experience with my first mortgage, I thought I would never do that. I actually got offered a position by him because I was so thorough with my documents at the time. He said, hey, do you want to come and work for me and be my admin? And so I was very, very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to work for him in that position where I could learn a lot under a very qualified and skilled broker and still have a salary, so to speak. Because a lot of times when you become a mortgage broker, you're on commission only, and then people become desperate and it's not a great way to go. So I was very fortunate to have an income as well as being able to learn. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years and then decided, that was in my early 20s, right after I finished my degree in business. And then I decided I wanted to go travel for a little bit. So I thought I was going to go and take a year off, a year sabbatical, and go to Australia as everybody does. And I did that. And I ended up traveling for 7 years all over the world. I've gone to, I think, 49 countries. And so that was a very great opportunity to work with lots of different cultures and different people, different personality groups. I worked on yachts, so it was a very tight, small, confined spaces. So you had to learn how to work in high stress environments with lots of different personality types. So again, I'm very grateful for those life moments and teaching moments in those types of conditions. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, I meet my partner on the yachts at the time. He's a marine engineer, and we decided that we want to have a family. And so this is a bit of my darker past. So I have a baby. We have a baby together, and I have postpartum depression. And it was not that I wasn't bonding or connecting with my baby. That was lovely, but I wasn't engaging my brain the way that satisfies or fulfills me. And so I was thinking about all the different things. I don't want my child in full-time childcare. That was a non-negotiable for me. Yeah. I want to have the flexibility of my career to be able to pick them up from school, to be able to go to their events, to be able to skip school, whatever it is. I want the flexibility. So I relooked at the mortgage broker course. I had to redo the whole thing again. And I kind of just latched onto it with claws because I could see this as my escape out of my depression at the time. And so normally it takes people a year, 8 months to a year to do the course. And I did it in 3. I did it as fast as I possibly could. Nice. And I thrive in this environment. I absolutely love helping people. And so that's the other part that just makes, it doesn't feel like a job to me, which is really, really nice. I do genuinely love what I do.
Yeah, that shows.
Hey?
It shows.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think when people are like going into conversations, it's like, are you just trying to sell me something, or are you for real? Are you going to educate me? Are you going to, give me some value? And when you're going into those conversations, it's a lot easier to go in with just like, hey, I'm here to help,
Yeah. And my motto is I lead with love, right? Like I've always said, you know what, do what makes you happy, do what you love doing, and the money will follow. And that's so true with this industry. And I'll even send people back. I'll be like, you know what? Your bank is actually offering you the best thing right now. I recommend going and signing them. People are like, really? You're just going to send me back to my bank? I'm like, yeah, they're actually offering you a pretty good deal right now. I would sign up with a 2 or 3 year term or whatever it is. And then, come
Come
back.
see me in 3 years.
Exactly. And they're like, wow, mind blown that she just doesn't want all my money or anything like that. She's just actually looking out for my best interest. Right.
Yeah. And that's how you build a really strong business. Because then you get word of mouth. People are just talking about you like, oh my goodness, did you see? She went and sent me somewhere else. It's like, yeah, because that's a better product. Like if someone I'm an insurance broker. So if I see something is better, why would I cancel it? Like, hey, you did good job. High five, like,
exactly. And it's also like, I have a fiduciary duty to look out for my client's best interest. So I can't, for my moral compass, I can't knowingly not send you there. Like I just couldn't do that. That's just not me. That's not who I am. My moral compass plus the fiduciary duty that I owe my clients for looking out for their best interest. So regardless, I'm supposed to, but it also just aligns with my personal values.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So fast forward to today, how much have you learned? How much do you continue to learn? Like what does your life look like as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so constantly growing and evolving. My biggest asset is my brain, right? So people come to me because of my knowledge and my expertise, and without growing, like this industry isn't static. It is always evolving and growing. And so you have to be on top of things all the time. So I'm actually going to a mastermind group next Thursday, with a bunch of like-minded individuals. And you always have to be growing and evolving and getting different strategies for clients. You go into a branch and your branch representative rarely has strategies for you. They're going to say, here's your best 5-year fix. And you kind of got to figure out yourself if you can, which most people can't. No offense to the general, but we're not taught this in school.
Yeah. Amen.
And so you got to kind of just figure it out for yourself, where it's like, okay, let's strategize a little bit here. What is your 3 to 5 year plan? What are your goals and objectives? Is cash flow important to you? Is, obtaining rentals important to you? Is paying off your mortgage important to you? Like, what is important to you at this point in time? And people forget that you're not married to a mortgage, right? People have this weird notion that, oh my God, okay, I'm getting a mortgage with First National or whoever, and this is who I have to be with for the life. No, okay, maybe this lender has a great product for you right now because they have a low rate and great prepayment privileges because you want to hammer down on your mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And so to have different strategies. And are you happy in your house? Are you going to be selling in the next 3 to 5 years? Is your mortgage portable? People don't realize that rate is only mentioned in about 6 paragraphs of a 36-page document. Right. There are a lot of other very important pieces such as portability and prepayment privileges and how we can utilize those to lower our costs when we're moving. So for example, using a prepayment privilege before you sell your house to reduce your penalty. You wouldn't get advised that at your branch, most likely. Maybe they might tell you to do that. Unlikely though, because the bank's not going to be making any more money off of you by doing that. They're going to be reducing your penalty. Mm-hmm. Do you want to live in a more rural property? And is your current lender okay with a rural property? Can you port that mortgage? And if not, what are the costs to break that? So an example is back when the interest rates were really, really low in the ones, there was a client that was just so rate focused and they wanted the lowest rate no matter what. So it's like 1.79. And it's like, okay, but these are some of the restrictions. Fast forward a year and they want to port their mortgage. And we could have gotten them a 1.99 at the time with very flexible portability options. So now they want to port this 1.79% mortgage over to a rural property. Well, the lender said no. And so they then had to break that mortgage. And now they're in with like a 3% rather than going with a 1.99, right? Lowest rate doesn't always equal lowest cost. And people need to wrap their head around that.
Oh, that is so true in insurance world as well. I'm trying to educate people on the difference between like permanent life insurance and term life insurance and mortgage life insurance and personal life insurance, like what the differences are, how they're different, and why people need to look into this stuff before going ahead and signing those papers. Like you said, we were just talking earlier about how you've got to have the right people on your team, like your dream team, right? Where that's a person that's a lawyer, someone who can give you good advice when it comes to legalities. And then a mortgage broker, because it is so valuable to have. And then a financial advisor who can help you build that plan and go, okay, this is what you need to have in place before you go buy a house. And I would love to talk more about like advice you would give a first-time home buyer, for example, because there's a lot of people on my podcast that are younger, right? Like my age and a little bit younger. And I think it's really important because, like you said, there's not a lot of education when it comes to this stuff, like what kind of insurance to buy? What do I even need for insurance? Like, why is that important? As well as how to buy a house, because I find a lot of people in the millennial generation are like, struggling to get themselves into a position to buy a house, or they're just like in the mindset that that's never going to happen for them. And it's really sad. And I'm like, no, guys, there's ways. We just have to plan for it. Right. Yeah. So what advice would you give someone who's maybe just looking at buying their first home or is in the process of thinking about that?
Well, I mean, one is get your credit. One of the things that, there's two things that kind of have to go hand in hand at the same time. One is getting your credit on par, making sure that's good. So don't miss your payments. Don't go overutilizing your credit. And then the other one is try to figure out how to get a down payment. So many people require a cosigner or gifted down payment. So I have to tell people to check their ego at the door sometimes. I just had a 40-year-old man, maybe he's even 45, I can't even remember, that needed a cosigner for mom and dad because he went through a separation and he's got child support payments. So the fact that, I can't buy a house on my own without mom and dad, I mean, probably every third file across my desk right now needs a cosigner. That's just the reality of it. It is tougher to get a mortgage right now. It's not impossible. And you have to be willing to, like I said, check your ego at the door a little bit. And you're going to have to learn to tighten your belt. Like we're in the uber consumerism stage of life, it seems, where we have to keep up with the Joneses and we're constantly buying our Starbucks, we're going out for dinner and we're doing this and that and the other thing. And sometimes you just got to hunker down and tighten your belt and just say, you know what, I'm actually not going to go for dinner this week. I might go out for a beer and put that extra $50 in a savings account or something like that. Mm-hmm. So getting those two things, credit and down payment, is usually the two hardest things right now. And I guess the last piece of advice too is don't think that you're going to buy your forever home as your first home.
Exactly.
So, right. It might be a condo. It might be, just to get your foot in the door to start to build your equity. Because right now, if you're paying rent, you're building somebody else's nest egg. You're not building your own. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to be paying into somebody else's rental portfolio and paying for their retirement, when in fact, you can be focusing on your own a little bit better than that.
Yeah. I bought myself, caveat, I live in a half duplex because it was what was smart for us. And we got a really good rate, right? Kyle works at a big company. They gave him 1% interest for 5 years. I was like, oh yeah, we'll take it, right? That's fantastic. But we didn't go and buy what we qualified for a $700,000 mortgage. And I was like, no, I don't want a $700,000 mortgage. We bought a property in a good area, like close to a school, close to a grocery store, half duplex. I think I've met my neighbors twice. Like they're so quiet. They keep to themselves, it was such a good investment. And now we're looking at buying another property and we made really good money on our property that we sold last year. And so now we're in a position that we can go, okay, what do we actually want to have? Right. And still no, Alaina, you don't need the $800,000 house. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
it's not necessary. Maybe go look at a $600,000 or a $500,000 house, right? That is more realistic for us. But it's just going to get what you want it shouldn't just be like the main focus. It's like, okay, can you grow here? What does this look like? Some of the houses I'm looking at are from like the 60s. I'm like, no, I'm a visionary,
Yeah, exactly. And it's about taking a step back. Sometimes I tell people to work backwards. Okay, what do you feel comfortable paying for a mortgage, right? Is it $2,000 a month? Is it $1,500? And then we'll tailor, okay, we'll then buy a place at $500 or $600 or whatever. And then the other thing is, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? So for us, we have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and it's important to us that we want to go travel with them. And so we do not want a mortgage higher than what we have. We've got a $500,000 mortgage, and that is totally tapped out. We don't want anything, a penny more than that. Because any extra money, we want to be able to go and take our kids traveling, and do these types of activities and events, go to the city, whatever it is. We want to have our cash flow available to us so that we can live our life the way we want to while our kids are young.
Yeah, don't be house poor. It really sucks.
Yeah.
So I live currently in Fort McMurray, Alberta, where people bought, and I mean, they are going to live there for a long time. They have great jobs, that kind of stuff, but they bought in like 2013 when the market was just like at its highest. And I was just sitting there looking at their mortgages. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars behind. They can't even get out of that mortgage now because of the fact that they'd have to come up with all of this money to break the mortgage. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, let's try and look at what's available, but also look at what's realistic. Like, yes, you may be able to make the payment today, but what happens if you lose your job?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what happens? It is possible. Anything can happen. So I think when people are going into these conversations like, oh, we're going to buy a house. Well, what does it look like? Like you said, how flexible does it need to be? Especially when you're just starting out, you might not know what is going to happen with your career. Like if you're well established, great. If you have your credit in order, I think that's really important. I'm getting into the schools now, so I'm going to come and teach at some of the Pal River schools as well, which is awesome. Getting in there and teaching them more about money and giving them a resource of someone to talk to.
Yes,
if they have questions, because who's talking to the 15-year-olds? Who are just starting to, 16-year-olds just starting to have their first jobs and learning how to manage their money. I wish I had someone,
and it's been so taboo to talk about money in previous generations, right? Mom and dad don't talk to you about their financial situation. No. It's been very much save your money, buy a house, pay off your mortgage, these sort of things. And that's
retire at 65 comfortably.
Yeah, on a single income, right? It's like, no, that's not the reality of life anymore, right?
No, it's changed a lot.
It's changed a lot, yeah.
Yeah, we can create whatever we want, though, which is awesome. So if we're focused, okay, like you said, what lifestyle do you want to create? I've done a lot of traveling in the last 6 months, and I'll tell you, I value my solitude. I value being at home. I value like being able to have a place to recharge my energy and just like feel good. And I need like my own space that I feel comfortable in. And if I'm not in a house that makes me feel safe and makes me feel like happy when I'm going into it, then that's not the place for me, we're going to go look at a bunch of houses today, but I'm sitting here going, I probably won't buy anything. I'm going to go look and see what's available, but I'm going to keep an eye out for the one because I don't want to pay $800,000 for a mortgage, right? Don't do it.
People forget about a kind of a unique product called the Purchase Plus Improvements, right? And so you go into a house if it's got good bones. So you want to look out, as cliche as it sounds, it's location. Doesn't matter how nice the house is. If it's in a crappy neighborhood, it's still never going to hold its value, right? So you can go find a decent, dated, good bones house, get a Purchase Plus Improvements mortgage to say redo the flooring, put some paint on the windows, or not on the windows.
Not on the windows.
And fix it up a little bit and put a little bit of sweat equity into it as well, and make it pretty nice. It doesn't have to be all the stainless steel appliances with the granite countertops and the nice swan neck faucet and the big backyard. There's lots of ideas out there to make a house quite pretty, quite nice on a lower budget, like we were talking. Yeah.
I love that advice because we just renovated our house in Fort McMurray. And it was like, okay, realistically, if I want to move my kitchen around, I was pricing it out. It was going to be like $60,000. I was like, I'm never going to get $60,000 out of that. So what we did is we did all of our floors throughout our entire house and just went, hey, okay, we didn't need to do the laundry room because whatever. And like one of our bathrooms had pretty good tiles. So we just left that one. But the rest of the house had carpet and hardwood in all the wrong places. So it was like, okay, well, let's rip all of that out, redo the floors. That cost us $12,000. Okay. Not too bad. And then we got $5,000 worth of countertops installed and it completely changed our entire house.
Nice.
And now if we do decide to sell it or rent it, it's a much more updated version of what's out there. I've seen other duplexes in the area and they are ghetto compared to ours. And I'm like, well, we put the money in, but we did it smart. Like we hired a friend and he's a contractor, but he gave us a good rate, right? So it was like, hey, maybe I put 25,000 in, all in, and I'll probably make that back out a bit because of the fact that it's done, right? So
once you start moving walls around and opening things up, then it can spiral pretty quickly when you start doing things like that.
And then you go, surprise asbestos, and you're like, not touching this. Okay.
Exactly. Or knob and tube wiring or mold or all kinds of stuff. So you just want to, like I said, a little lipstick, cosmetic stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah. That's a big tip because people get all excited and they're just like, I have to do all this stuff. And it's like, I did the same thing, guys. Guess what? I was pricing out cabinetry and like going, this is how cool my kitchen's going to be. And then I was like, no, that's dumb. I don't need to do that. Like, who am I trying to, impress? Myself? Well, I can impress myself with a little bit of lipstick,
Yeah, exactly.
You wear lipstick. I'm like, no, I'm too lazy to wear makeup.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So that's such good advice. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And I think that one of the biggest parts of being a homeowner is just like making it your own as well. I don't think you have to sit there and be like everyone else. I have a saying, you can try to keep up with the Joneses, but the Joneses are broke too. Right. So
true.
Why don't we just empower each other to be like, hey, high five, we saved money today. I made my coffee at home. See my cool coffee mug? I call it being thrifty, right? You got to be smart and be thrifty with your money. And when you're going out, I'm actually interviewing. I'm super excited. Shameless plug for the Thrifty Duchess. They're a thrift store in Fort McMurray and they're up and coming, but they are doing it right. Like they're modeling the clothes and I love it. It's so fun.
Oh, fun. That's awesome.
And they're getting like Louis Vuitton purses and like high-end shoes and because the people in Fort McMurray like fashion. And so they've got like a really high-end thrift store. And I'm like, I love that because it's so important to recycle. And being Earth Day, I'm like, recycle, people, just do it. Like we got to do something about it. But it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah. So I loved when you were talking about having freedom and like the flexibility to take care of your family and like actually be there. And I think as women, we're expected to be there and like be the stay-at-home mom. And it's like, but what if I want to also pursue my dreams? Like I can have both. And if you're telling me I can't have both, then I'm going to go prove you wrong. And I love that doing what we do, for instance, like I do mortgages through referrals all the time, right? So a lot of my customers need mortgages. That's just normal. Like if you're going to buy a house, you probably need a mortgage, right? Yeah. So partnering with people that are on your team and they're like going to educate you and going to take that time out to help you, I think that's so important. But what do you think are the most important things when it comes to just making good decisions with buying a home?
What probably the hardest thing is to take emotion out of it. And so that can be really hard, especially when you're buying a home and you go there, like we were talking about buying, right at the top of your budget and you go there and you say, oh, you envision all this stuff. And you don't realize, especially as a first-time home buyer, all the other costs that are incurred. You're going to have maintenance. What if you need a new roof? What if you need windows?
Hot water tank.
What if, you're going to have property taxes? You're going to have insurance. There's a lot of extra costs. So trying to buy under budget for your first home, I think is really important until you kind of get your feet wet and figure out, okay, this is actually a lot more expensive. It's not just your mortgage. It's not just your principal and interest payment that's associated with home ownership. There is a lot of other costs associated with it. So just purchasing with, under your budget. And again, if you are working with a branch, great, but go get a second opinion as well. Amen. From a mortgage broker. They may just say, yeah, no, you're doing great. That's a good product. It's, people typically get sold a 5-year fix because the branch representatives get paid the most on that. Same with me. I get paid the most on a 5-year or 5, 7, 10 year. The higher the term, the more we get paid. But that's not really what we're recommending to clients right now. Right now, we're recommending a 2 to 3 year term. It may be a little bit higher in interest now, but we are expecting rates to be back down in the threes in about 12 to 24 months. So right now, I'm telling clients, look, we're buying ourselves time right now. We're just getting through this hump of uncertainty where inflation is really high. We've just had inflation report in 2 days ago. We're at 4.3. So that's great. We're on this downward trajectory. And so we're just trying to buy ourselves time now until things can settle a little bit more.
Yeah, that's something huge to consider too. Like, yeah, I'm going to go look at some houses today, but am I going to buy today? Probably not. Like, we'll see. Maybe I find my absolute dream home and it's exactly what I want and it's in a good price range and all that kind of stuff. But I still look at mortgage rates and I'm like, do I? Yeah, not really. Right. Yeah. So we just signed our Fort Mac house. We did a 3-year fixed term in February. And it was, I think, a good decision for us because then we're like, okay, we can reevaluate in a couple of years. But just know that, again, you can, most of the time, if you're close to the end of your term, sometimes if the rate is lower, it might make sense to switch it up, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So here's a little statistic for you. 68% of Canadians change the terms of their mortgage before their term is up, roughly around the 3-year mark. So you go into your bank or your broker and they're giving you your best 5-year and you see the rate and you're like, oh, this is so much better than a 3-year. So you sign up for that. Well, in 3 years, you move, you have a baby, you break up, you change jobs, whatever, you have to break that mortgage. And now it's incurring a penalty. The largest penalty I've ever seen was $56,000. And so it's important to know where you're sitting both with your job and your spouse. I mean, things happen. In that particular instance, there was infidelity in the relationship that they weren't aware of, and they just signed a new 5-year fixed. And so they were selling the family home. So they're going to have the commission, the real estate commission, and then a $56,000 penalty on that. And so people break their mortgage usually just after the 3-year mark. I know I've broken every one of mine for various reasons. One was to split up with an ex. One was to go travel. And the other was to do renovations for a house. And they're all roughly around the 3-year mark. So something to bear in mind that we're very much a dynamic culture now, whereas our parents' generations, they stayed in the same job, they stayed in the same house, they stayed in the same town. That is not our generation anymore. Like, we switch partners' houses, upsize, downsize, switch towns, move out of country. I mean, we don't sit around long anymore these days.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I think that when you're just giving yourself that flexibility, you don't have to stress out as much either, because you're like, okay, yeah, no, I may be paying a little bit more, but is it worth it? Yeah, because I get this flexibility and this opportunity. And it's the same thing for life insurance. Like, people look at permanent life insurance and they're like, holy cow, why is it so much more than the term? I'm like, because it's guaranteed to pay out.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to pay out versus term insurance. You're not supposed to die in the next 20 years. Like, hopefully and then they just take your money. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what you want, fantastic. But if you want a permanent product, then look at it. Not everyone's going to qualify for them. Not everyone's going to need them. But at the same time, they're so much different than term insurance, right? So I think it's really important just to get that education. And when you have the education, you can make educated decisions versus just making split-second decisions on buying $1 million house. And like, don't do it unless you have like that kind of income that it's sustainable, right?
Yeah. And it's also important to find, like, again, going back to the dream team, to find people that align with what you want, what your goals are, right? And somebody that's not going to sell you something more, both with a mortgage or with your the house that you're wanting to buy, for them to realize what your goals are. Like, our goals are that we want to be down somewhere tropical for a couple months of the year. And so that's why it's really important for us to not have a big mortgage payment, because we want to go travel with our kids and show them the world. And so we are okay sacrificing a bigger house so that we can go and go travel with our kids.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's a huge note, is just to make sure that you have your values for your family. And it's like, these are our priorities. I think people are going into these conversations with each other and they aren't like dreaming together. I think a lot of people are dream flat and they're just doubting that anything is going to be possible. And I'm like, no, we have to stand up and go, hey guys, we can create what we want to create, right? We were talking about that earlier. And having your dream life might mean not valuing money as much. Like we make great money. We live in a place that's beautiful. Like our home is awesome. Our yard is great. We've made it home, right? But there's no place like home. And so when you're not close to your family and you have to travel, like I friggin' drive 24 hours to see my family, you know, because I have a 100-pound Rottweiler and she is wanting to travel with us. And then it's just like, cool, you know, I guess we're driving for 24 freaking hours and pulling over on the side of the highway and sleeping in our car because we're too cheap to get a hotel, or we're saving our money, right? Or we just keep driving through the night and Kyle and I take turns driving and then we're missing the mountains because we could have got there in the morning, but no, we kept going anyways. So there's so much difference in moving home, but like living in BC, taxes are higher. Like you pay more for everything here because BC stands for what I say is bring cash, right? And BC bring cash because it's expensive, but it's amazing. You can grow all your own vegetables. You can go fish for your food. You can hunt for your food. Like you can be more thrifty if you're willing to make those decisions for yourself. Like, hey, I just interviewed a lady named Mandy Melnick on my episode 2 weeks ago. And she's a farmer out in Boyle. And she's like, hey guys, the fact that they're charging $10 for a chicken is not realistic. Like I fed that chicken way more than $10 worth of food for you to pay me, you know? So you have to be just looking at your money in a different way. And Kyle and I literally had this conversation yesterday as we're driving to Port Alberni going, okay, you know, we have to cut out some things in order to make it happen. If we do want to move back home in the next year, then okay, let's not go to Starbucks, you know, unless it's a tax write-off. And then, well, I'm probably going to go, if I'm going to do an appointment there, I'm going to go do it there. But then like the other night, for example, I went out it was called Wine, Women and Wellbeing. Shout out to Anita Parker. She just brought together some local entrepreneurs and it was a really good conversation. Really great people were there. I ran into my old roommate, Quintina, and I was just like, wow, I haven't been out in so long. And the last event was the one that I spoke at. And I was like, I got to go back. And so I went to this one and I made some really good contacts. I was able to meet some really cool people and just get my brand out there more. And I'm like, okay, if I am going out all the time, I have to be smart about it. I could spend $50, $70 on dinner if I really wanted to and have one or two drinks, or I can drive myself and have a glass, AKA a pitcher of lemon water, right? Yeah. And then I'm going to have one glass of wine and I'm going to have the half price chicken wings. Yeah. Good. Totally. It cost me less than $15 for my order. You know, I'm like, perfect. It doesn't have to be $100 anytime you're going out, right?
No, and that's exactly it. Like when I go out, I try to actually have a snack at home before I have. So I'm not starving, so I don't want to have 4 appetizers or whatever, right? If I want to go out with my husband and we'll go and we'll have an appetizer, we'll go share some chicken wings and have a beer or something rather than going for sushi, which is also definitely one of my favorite things. And I could easily drop $100, $120 at sushi every single time.
My husband eats the whole restaurant. I'm like, how did you eat that much food? He's like, oh, it's so good. Especially in BC, like Alberta, there's like one good sushi place in town. But here it's like everywhere is fresh and it's so amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So just being smart and use critical thinking skills. We really lack that. You know, do a little research. The internet's amazing. There's a ton of resources out there now. There's just so much information on the internet that for people to be ignorant about things is no excuse anymore. Find your dream team, interview a couple of different people, you know, especially you want to find people that align with your values, you know, I have access to the same products and mortgages and lenders that every other broker has access to. do your values align with mine? These are the things that you want to use your gut instinct, use your intuition a bit about people and be like, is this a good fit? And if it's not, don't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm going to go see what else I can find.
Yeah. You're not tied to that person just because you sat down with them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. People feel a little bit cornered or like, oh God, I've now spent half an hour with this realtor or this mortgage broker. Now I feel like I owe them something. I'm obligated to use them when it's not that at all.
No, we work for you. we're trying to earn your business, right? And it's not trying to be like the sleazy salesman, I love going to someone that I know cares about my family and isn't going to try and screw me over, right? And when we're going into talking to each other, oh, you're good. I see you froze there for a sec, but it's all good.
Yeah,
oh, it's my internet. Oh, no. I apologize. No. I can get that out. That's fun. But yeah, so when we're going into the conversations, it's like, okay, let's just make some good decisions. And guess what? A decision doesn't have to be made today. Like most of the time you can go, okay, we've made this decision that it's time for us to come home. But like my husband wants to keep his job. Like he doesn't want to give that up. He loves his job. And like, we don't want to sell our home. We just put another mortgage on it. Right. And we just renovated. So it's not like we have to do it today. It's like, okay, well, we're going to go into it smart and just be prepared for whatever's coming. And like you said, things are, sorry, my mother is calling me apparently. But that's good. That means she's in town. So perfect. Anyways, I lost my train of thought there completely, but I want people to get more access to your content because I absolutely love what you're doing on your social media. I appreciate your dedication to educating. And where can people get access to you?
So I do a lot of content creation on Facebook and Instagram. I dabbled in TikTok. I realized it's probably not my jam. But you can just find me, Cait Holmes, on social media. And I post a ton of content. I try to post something every single day, and it's all information-based, so education-based. Again, I don't try to sell you on rate because that's not my jam. There's a lot more to a mortgage than just rate. There's also my website. It's okay. I'm getting a new one made up. There's some content and there's some information on there. But if people have specific questions or just want to chat mortgages, they can always reach out at kate@mortgagedesigners.ca or find me on Facebook at Cait Holmes, CAIT, and we can connect there.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you again for your time today. I know I got a lot of value out of that conversation. I took a bunch of notes. I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like how we got to get some education out as well. So thank you for being here. And is there anything that you want to leave the audience with for success tips?
Oh, actually, one final note is everybody's situation is different, right? And so it really is. I mean, there's a ton of information out there. So yes, go and get it, but reach out to someone because I mean, I deal with so many unique situations now that, people aren't the cookie cutter bank clients anymore, right? That you fit in this little box that everybody's situation is a little bit unique. Oh, I do multiple seasonal jobs. I have a gifted down payment from an inheritance. I've got clients that are bringing money over from Poland or Germany, and I'm having to get documents translated and all of this stuff. So it's not like one size fits all. So, reach out and contact myself or any other mortgage broker out there for that matter, and just explain your situation. And because everybody's got a story and everybody's story is different. Mm-hmm. And the way we think of lenders, each lender is different. And so you might be a better fit for a certain lender than one other one. And so that would be the key takeaway on that one.
Amazing. I love it. All right, guys, make sure that you follow Cait on her social media. Reach out to her if you're in the BC area, and let's get some people getting into that dream space and like financially being able to afford what they want with their life, because that is what we're all meant to do, is like have fun and live our lives. And that's possible. So, all right, that's it for today. Make sure you share the show if you got some value out of it. I look forward to hearing your comments and takeaways from it as well. So that is Pursuit of Relentless signing out.